Hillary Clinton had agreed last week to a private meeting with some activists from Black Lives Matter. Why did she do that? I can only guess that she wanted to avoid the fate of Bernie Sanders, who had an entire rally embarrassingly hijacked by a pair, just two individuals from the so-called Black Lives Matter movement, who screamed and shouted and created a hysterical fit and basically ended a rally of his before it began. Now, Hillary did not want that to happen to her. So I guess the price was having to go and listen to these individuals basically berating her behind the scenes. And it was all taped, and the tape has been released. And frankly, it is amazing to watch. First of all, because Hillary is listening to some of this nonsense, and it really is deep, profound, offensive nonsense. And she's there like a bobblehead, like a Hillary Clinton bobblehead. She's nodding, yeah, And it's embarrassing. Now, first of all, who is she listening to? This has not been covered really on CNN, where they feature this, or MSNBC or anywhere else. But the main spokesperson to whom she is listening is a guy named Julius Jones. Now, who is he? The only way we could find out is going to his Facebook page. And what it says about him on his Facebook page is that in 2005, he worked at the YMCA of Greater Worcester, Massachusetts. 2006, he started working at Regional Environmental Council. Then 2007, he left the job at YMCA of Greater Worcester. 2010, he started working at I Am the Process Studios. And 2011, he started working at Regional Environmental Council, or actually left his job in 2011. If he has employment right now, I don't know what it is. He currently is involved with an organization called Worcester Roots Project. It's a collective of youth and adult organizers on a mission to create opportunities for economic, social, and environmental justice. They are partnered with the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops, the Social Justice Roundtable, the Save Our Pools Coalition, the Worcester Green Jobs Coalition. Doesn't this sound exciting? Okay, for Hillary Clinton to give 15 minutes to these people, why would she do that when she won't give 15 minutes to talk to millions of people, literally, on a radio talk show like this one? Or will do nothing to meet with conservatives or even people from a moderate point of view? Why does she give this kind of time to people on the fringe? And by the way, speaking of people on the fringe, the other activist who was identified as questioning Hillary Clinton behind the scenes was Onasia Yancey. And Onasia Yancey is described in her biographical material as an African-American aggressive femme lesbian, sexual health educator, poet, and activist, born and raised in Boston. Downasia, that's an aggressive femme, that's hyphenated, aggressive femme lesbian, sexual health educator, poet, and activist, born and raised in Boston. Downasia has worked for several Boston area nonprofits, including the Boston Alliance of GLBT, that's gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered youth. That the acronym for that is BAGLY. The Fenway Health and Boston GLBT Adolescent Social Services, that's GLASS, GLASS. You can also find Downasia featured in the documentary Secret Survivors, produced by Ping Chong and Company and the Ms. Foundation for Women. In any event, the interchange between Secretary Clinton and the activists began with Clinton bobbing her head and nodding as she listened to this.
America's first drug is free black labor and turning black bodies into profit. And the mass incarceration system mirrors an awful lot like the prison plantation system. It's a similar thread.
Okay, stop for a moment. The prison system is awful lot like the plantation system. People went to the plantation. They were enslaved for no reason other than the color of their skin. No reason other than their African origins. Is that why people are in prison? Do you think people are in prison just because, oh, yeah, there's a black guy, let's haul him away to prison? Is that the way it works in America? That's what Julius Jones wants to suggest. And Hillary Clinton said, He continues.
And until someone takes that message and speaks that truth to white people in this country so that we can actually take on anti-blackness as a founding problem in this country, I don't believe that there's going to be a solution, because what the conversations that are happening now and why there's so much cohesion across the divide, the red side and the blue side, is because of money. Right? We spend a lot of money on prisons. We spend more money on prisons than we are on schools.
That's not true.
But if we look at it from a lens of let's solve this financial problem, and we don't look at the greater bottom line that African Americans who are Americans are suffering at greater rates than most other people, every other people, for the length of this country, then it's not going to go away. It's just going to morph into something new and evolve.
Okay, this is part of her listening tour. She's listening, and then it sounds like this.
You, in your family, have been, in no uncertain way, partially responsible for this, more than most.
Okay, now, wait. Can we stop? You have been partially responsible for this? Is that what he's saying? Really? Hillary Clinton? She doesn't question him about this. He continues.
There may have been unintended consequences, but now that you understand the consequences, what in your heart has changed that's going to change the direction of this country? Like, what in you, like, not your platform, not what you're supposed to say. Like, how do you actually feel that's different than you did before? Like, what were the mistakes? And how can those mistakes that you made be lessons for all of America, for a moment of reflection on how we treat black people in this country?
Okay, what were the mistakes that Hillary allegedly made? When I knew Hillary in law school, the biggest argument we had, and it was a big argument, was her support for the Black Panthers. This is in 1970, right? She's a big supporter of the Black Panthers. And I thought the Black Panthers, even in 1970, when I was a liberal Democrat, I thought the Black Panthers were thugs, violent thugs, murderous thugs. The conversation with Hillary and Julius Jones and Daonisha continues like this.
Well, obviously, it's a very thoughtful question that deserves a thoughtful answer.
No, wait. It is not a thoughtful question. First of all, it isn't a question. I mean, and what's thoughtful about it? This is just politically correct pap. It's nonsense. And the idea that someone would be elected president of the United States who isn't capable of standing up to it and saying, wait a minute, I wish you well, and I know you're sincere, but you're spouting a lot of misinformation. She continues.
Well, obviously, it's a very thoughtful question that deserves a thoughtful answer.
Barb.
And I think that there has to be a reckoning. I agree with that. But I also think there has to be some positive vision and plan that you can move people toward. I mean, once you say, this country has still not recovered from its original sin, which is true. Okay.
Again, which is true, fair enough. But really, this is a thoughtful question, and this is profound. And Hillary Clinton is incapable of emphasizing what literally every vital, every dynamic, every meaningful black leader has emphasized, which is, of course, you have to oppose racism. Of course, you have to oppose oppression. But some of the problems, not all, some of the problems, in fact, I think it's safe to say most of the problems of the black community right now are internal. They are deep-seated. They are a reflection of slavery. They are a reflection of a history of oppression. But they involve things like family structure and values and culture. Take a look at these people as an example of some of the problems. Really, is the way out of difficulty to work your entire life in so-called community organizations and activist organizations? Hillary Clinton making history with an exchange with a pair of Black Lives Matter activists who, by the way, said they were very, very unhappy with Hillary Clinton's responses, despite the fact that she's obviously trying to suck up to them. I mean, really, it's kind of sad, frankly. It's kind of sad to see it because, like it or not, this is one of those people who could be president of the United States. And when she hears this entire rant about how she's partially responsible for the situation we have right now in America, which is so terrible, 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 and that the prison complex is like the old plantation, and both are enslaving black people, basically. By the way, if you believe any of that is true, or you were impressed by the way that Hillary handled this, give us a call, 1-800-955-1776. Here is Hillary responding to some of those statements by Julius Jones in this meeting that took place in Keene, New Hampshire, on the campaign trail. Behind the scenes, not in public, not when she knew anyone was listening, but she probably knew that she was being taped. And she was, as she said this.
Your analysis is totally fair. It's historically fair, it's psychologically fair, it's economically fair. But you're going to have to come together as a movement and say, here's what we want done about it. Because you can get lip service from as many white people as you can pack into Yankee Stadium and a million more like it, who are going to say, oh, we get it, we're going to be nicer, okay? That's not enough, at least in my book. That's not how I see politics. So the consciousness raising, the advocacy, the passion, the youth of your movement is so critical. But now all I'm suggesting is, even for us sinners, find some common ground on agendas that can make a difference right here and now in people's lives. And that's what I would love to, have your thoughts about, because that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do.
Okay, even for us sinners? And what sins in particular is she admitting? She won't admit any sins about her email server or the emails or any of the other scandals in which she and her husband have been involved over the years. What is she referring to? Is that her white privilege? I mean, the fact that she sinned by picking white parents? Is that the real guilt that Hillary should feel? And again, let's be fair here. She married America's first black president. Toni Morrison, Nobel Prize winner, said so. Hillary and Julius Jones continue.
This is and has always been a white problem of violence.
A white problem of violence.
There's not much that we can do to stop the violence against us.
Well, if that is
a conversation that I push back.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Also respectfully.
Yeah. Well, respectfully, if that is your position, then I will talk only to white people about how we are going to deal with the very real problems.
That's not what I mean. No. But like what I'm saying is, what you just said was a form of victim blaming. Right? You
victim blaming?
What the Black Lives Matter movement needs to do to change white hearts is
no, I'm not talking about. Look, I don't believe you change hearts. I believe you change laws, you change allocation of resources, you change the way systems operate. You're not going to change every heart.
Okay, she's right, of course, about that, but I don't believe you change hearts. Isn't that, to some extent, what politics is about? Right? We don't change hearts. You just change laws, an allocation of resources, which is money. That's all she cares about? Let's go to your calls to Adam in Atlanta. Adam, you're on the Medved Show.
Michael, I really, honestly, I totally, wholeheartedly disagree with you. I believe, to be honest with you, that black lives do matter.
So do I.
And obviously, you sound like you don't believe that, but I believe that it does matter. Black lives.
Wait. What have I said that makes it sound like I don't believe that black lives matter?
Well, I mean, you the way you sound like you're making it seem like as if it's irrelevant, black lives, the way you're talking, to be honest.
No, it's very relevant. What claims the most black lives before their time? What force, what perpetrator claims the most black lives?
Listen, black people in America do marginalize, and they do go through a lot of problems, and that's just the bottom line. If you don't see that, then
no, of course it's true. But I'm asking you, what's the number one? If you want to talk about violence against black people, and that's what this whole conversation is about, what's the chief source of violence against black people?
Go ahead and tell me. I mean, I want to hear from
I
your
will.
point of
I will
view.
tell you about 90% of violence against black people is from other black people. It is internal, just like most of the violence against white people is from other white people.
What causes that? What causes that black on black crime? Please tell me that.
I will tell you what causes it. What causes it is evil, bad behavior, bad choices, and the fact that we live in a fallen world and people sometimes seize the wrong solution to their problems or whatever. The point is, if you want to make the case that a long history of oppression and slavery are responsible for higher levels of violence in the black community, you're right. I agree with you. But the truth of the matter is to expect that a change in laws or even a change in the way that white people feel is going to suddenly reduce the problems of violence in the black community, I don't see how that works. That seems to me an absurd proposition.
I disagree with you respectfully.
Okay, explain to me
do.
how it works. How does a change of attitude in the white community end violence in the black community?
Unfortunately, black communities do not have the same resources as white communities do.
Agreed.
That is the bottom line. I mean, with all due respect, you're speaking in a white perspective. You do not understand what black people go through being a black in America. And that's your problem because you're not getting it. You just don't get it. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that
when you say I just don't get it, I really do not understand what you mean. I have faced this problem and lived with it and talked about it and been concerned about it basically all my life, certainly since I was in college. It's a long time ago. And to say I don't get it and I'm not aware of it, it's absurd. Of course I do. The question I'm trying to ask you, Adam, and I'll give you a chance to respond at the other side of the break, is how is it supposed to work if white people change their behavior and their feelings? How will that help the problem of violence within the black community? Debate talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and two of its representatives in an extended meeting, which was all captured on tape with Hillary Rodham Clinton. Let's go back to Adam in Atlanta. Adam, I wanted to give you a chance to respond, but at the same time to acknowledge that a part of what you've said, of course, I agree with. Of course, Black Lives Matter. And of course, there are gross inequities that exist, particularly in terms of the unemployment rate, particularly in terms of various economic opportunities and the economic background. White people tend, and Asian people as well, to start out with more economic resources than many black people start out with. However, my question would be, what has happened under 7 years of Barack Obama and Democratic leadership to actually improve the situation for African Americans?
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Good.
I'll be very honest. As a matter of fact, it got worse.
Agreed.
So that is the reality of it. So, and I believe it's more racist now than we have ever seen before. And it's just the bottom line. I mean, it got really worse. I thought that things would have gotten better if Barack Obama, an African American, would have been elected the president. I thought that things would have changed. But realistically speaking, it got worse.
Agreed.
Right.
So what is it? Hold on for a minute. Then, just speaking constructively as one American to another, what is it that we do to make things better?
Well, I mean, it really all starts with foundation, family foundation. I mean, the structure of the family of African American community, it's really poor, quite frankly. It's not as compared to a white family, to be honest with you. There's no education. You have to understand the African American community weren't always like this. Back in the 60s, these communities were all together. They changed laws. Martin Luther King has done something nonviolent protest and have changed laws, to be honest with you. The community were all together.
No, here's an interesting point, is that there's a scholar at Harvard, black scholar, named William Julius Williams, who has actually shown that what you're saying is entirely true. The black communities used to be much more united. What's happened today is because of desegregation. When people make a little bit of money, when they become middle class or above, they move out of a given black community. In Harlem, for instance, where Ben Carson was just campaigning and gave some terrific statements. In Harlem, he used to have judges and doctors and lawyers and teachers who all lived together with workers and janitors and the unemployed. People lived in the same community. Now you unfortunately have these isolated pockets of poverty and hopelessness, which are very, very difficult. But please continue.
But I mean, you're saying that isolated. It's really not isolated. I mean, to be honest with you, 95% of the African American communities are very poverty. I mean, you're talking about Ben Carson. Ben Carson is, to be honest with you, is 1% of the African American community who are, successful.
The percentages are bigger than that, but you're right. I mean, it's still disproportionate. The point about Ben Carson is he started out, he grew up in housing projects. He grew up in a very difficult, disadvantaged home. He changed his life partially because of a religious commitment and became this amazing success story. But that is still possible in America. I would imagine you've probably lived a life somewhat like that yourself.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah, totally. But I mean, I've grown up in a project, to be honest with you, and thankfully, I've had parents who are together, father and mother who are still married to each other. See, you have to understand that if you're leaving a single mother house and if you're leaving mom and dad that are still together, you get to have more opportunities. You get to have better. You come out of better, I believe.
I don't think there's any question about it. I don't think there's any question at all. The point that I'm trying to make is the way that you're talking right now seems to me to be totally in line with the reality in America and the kind of constructive conversation that you can have. And I was just appalled that Hillary Clinton didn't answer some of the nonsense that the other individual was saying, where he was the suggestion being that the solution for Black America will change for the better when white America changes for the better. Listen, we all need to change and grow. And by the way, something else that we all need, talking about the remarkable, and it is going to be the subject of intense conversation. It certainly should be. Interchange from last week, just revealed by Hillary Rodham Clinton, an interchange with two apparently unemployed protesters for the Black Lives Matter movement who were lecturing Hillary, and then basically she was conceding everything that they said. Do you believe that this interchange made Hillary Clinton look better? If you do, give us a call, 1-800-955-1776. Here is Julius Jones, who was one of those protesters who was arguing with Hillary, appearing on CNN with Wolf Blitzer. Here's what he had to say.
Black lives are actively under attack, and we are in a terrible war with our own country. African Americans are Americans, and when Black Lives Matter, and when people say all lives matter, it's actually a violent statement, because the only time that people say all lives matter is in opposition to Black Lives Matter, and it's the most violent statement of love that you can do. It's like all lives matter.
Okay. Do you think it's a violent statement to say all lives matter? Honestly, what is a violent statement about that? And what is it about this young man, really, that qualifies him now as a national spokesperson on this issue? Ben Carson last week went to Harlem. And this was called to my attention by a great column by Mark Thiessen. It's posted up at our website at michaelmedved.com. The headline of the column is "Republicans Should Follow Ben Carson's Lead on Black Lives Matter." And what does he mean by Ben Carson's lead? Listen.
Well, of course Black Lives Matter, but what I feel is that instead of people pointing fingers at each other and just creating strife, what we need to be talking about is how do we solve the problem in the black community of murder, essentially. For a young black male in the inner city, homicide is the most likely cause of death. That is ridiculous. And most of those occur at the hands of other young black males. We need to be talking about why is that occurring. We need to be talking about how do we instill values into people again so that they do in fact believe that their brother's life matters. And that's going to be a matter of getting back to the values and principles that got black people through slavery and through segregation and Jim Crowism, and those are family and faith. Those are the things that got us through it. And as we throw those things away, you're seeing terrible carnage occurring in our communities. Also recognizing that, 73% of black babies born out of wedlock, that woman's education stops generally with that first baby. And that baby is at least 4 times as likely to grow up in poverty and is likely to end up in the penal system or the welfare system. That is destructive to the community, but the PC, police, and the progressive community have gotten people to believe that that's okay. You're not supposed to talk about that. If anybody talks about that, they're an Uncle Tom and they're against you, when in fact those are the very people that are trying to save the situation.
Okay, we're going to play this more than once because I think it's important, it's courageous, it's clear, and it's one of the reasons whether or not he becomes the Republican nominee for President of the United States. And Ben Carson is one of those candidates who is gaining genuine momentum. There's no question about it. He's perceived to have done very well in the debate. He's certainly doing very well on this issue. And as someone who grew up poor and disadvantaged and achieved great things, won a full scholarship to Yale and went on to become a head of a department of one of America's most prestigious medical schools and really a world-famous pediatric surgeon, neurosurgeon. Ben Carson is a voice that needs to be heard in our national dialogue. If you have any problem at all with what Dr. Carson has to say, I can't imagine how you would. But if you do, you can give us a call at 1-800-955-1776. Let's go quickly to Johnny in Orlando, Florida. Johnny, you're on the Medved Show.
Okay, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
I am an African American myself, and come from Georgia, and I've been in the construction industry. I'm a contractor, and some of the issues I want to discuss with you is that Dr. Ben Carson, he's a fine man. And we need more like that.
Amen.
But the thing that's gonna make us survive as a African American community is that we need to have more plumbers, carpenters, welders, technicians that can support families in our community.
Absolutely right. And by the way, one of the candidates who's been talking about that most is Marco Rubio. Because from the Latino community that he comes from, it's the same idea. Not everybody is going to be college bound, but these are good jobs. And if you are well trained and you go through an apprentice program, you go to a technical school and you learn these jobs, well, this is a contractor. You can make a nice living, can't you?
Yeah, let me explain this to you. I also am a minister in the prison system, okay? And I've been doing this about 25 years.
Well, God bless you for it. Go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, yes, you're right that there's too many obstacles in the way. And one I'm going to tell you about that you mentioned, and I agree with you 100%. There's blacks that are the government employ them, and they're supposed to be working to help cause opportunities for African Americans. And these same people are just taking advantage of making a dollar for themselves. And I'm just trying to tell you that. So you got all these social programs that are ran by these people, and all they're doing is getting a salary for themselves.
You're entirely correct, Johnny. And part of our recent history, all of the money that was spent on Lyndon Johnson's Great Society and his war on poverty, a lot of it went to the kind of people that I encountered very specifically when I was doing that kind of work many, many years ago, back in the 1970s. And what you'd call those people, you'll pardon the language, was poverty pimps. They were folks who actually could make a very, very good living on various governmental grants. And no, that's not the way to go. You're working with people trying for spiritual regeneration, which is exactly what we need, not just in the black community, but in the white community. And we need it all together and all across the board for the sake of this greatest nation on God's green earth.